Did you know that the UK's prisons are so full that they're just letting thousands and thousands of criminals walk free early? Actually, their entire justice system is so close to completely collapsing. They're running at like a 98% capacity. They have been for ages now. They used to let their prisoners out at 50% of their sentence. That's when they'd get automatic release. Then last year, they dropped it to 40. Now they're pushing it down to a third. 1/3. That's the only amount of time you have to serve a prison sentence in the UK. Meanwhile, the prison population in England and Wales has basically doubled over the last 30 years. Can't even pretend to be shocked at that. We all know what's happened. So their brilliant solution is to just open the gates. What could go wrong? Don't even get me started on the whole, we can't build prisons fast enough argument. You can. You can put up temporary facilities in months if you actually cared about public safety, but they don't. And here's the part of the story that should make everyone's blood boil. In July, they were actively planning to let rapists, people convicted of manslaughter and violent crimes out at the halfway point instead of 2/3. Right-wing extremists, not really just normal people, called it out and pointed out that now victims would be terrified of bumping into their rapist on the street and that every woman and girl in the country would be at a greater risk. They had already sent letters to over 8,700 victims in the victim contact scheme, warning them that their attacker's release date might move up. And that's only to the ones that were officially enrolled. So the real number is higher. So could you imagine that? Your rapist is in jail and you get a letter saying, we're at capacity, so he's just going to be let out early. That's no way to live. It's no way for a country to operate. How do you trust your judicial system, your government, your leaders? Complete erosion of public trust. But thankfully, after all of the backlash that has happened, of course there'd be backlash, and all the victims groups that refused to stay quiet, the government announced early August that rape, serious child sex offenses, and grooming would be excluded from this early release. Now we've got Andy Burnham, their prime minister, sucks. He's defending this whole mess by saying, if we don't do this, the system will collapse and put public safety at a much greater risk. The irony is almost impressive. What a collapsing country. It's just pitiful to watch at this point. Oh, and they've already screwed it up. 37 prisoners were released by accident under the last early release scheme. Whoops. Our bad. These soft on crime policies, ideology over safety, it's what the Democrats are pushing in America too. So if you think that this wouldn't happen in America, it will. Pay attention, people. This video that I'm about to show is what the DSA, the socialists, Democratic Socialists of America that do control the Democratic Party at this point, this is what they're pushing for. This is what they have to say.
What we really want to see is a horizon where folks are not reliant on armed enforcement to meet our public safety needs.
Right, but it says defund police on the website. That's your goal. And also to get rid of prisons and jails, correct?
Yes.
So if my daughter is assaulted and raped, is there any agency that would seek to find her assailant and bring him to justice?
Of course, yeah, of course.
What would it be if not police, and where would he be if not a jail?
I guess I really want to avoid getting kind of caught into these hypotheticals and talk more about the reality that we're actually facing right now, which is that we're spending absolutely outrageous amounts of money on police and policing, and we're not spending money on things that actually make people safe and feel safe, which is things like actually well-lit streets, the streetlights in Los Angeles. Everybody agrees it's a huge problem. Things like mental health care and substance use treatment. So things that drive people to commit crimes and to that make our society less safe. We're not doing anything about the root causes, and instead we're funneling money into the police.
You say you fight for the working class. Based on what we see, working class people don't actually advocate for the prisons to be open and all those people to be let
I mean, we're not advocating for the prison doors to be opened and everyone to be let out. What we're advocating for is a redistribution of our resources and a change in our priorities and what we think of when we think of safety.
And what do you think happens when you redistribute the resources? Well, we're seeing it in England play out. They're about to collapse. Their entire criminal justice system is about to collapse. She's going to sit there with a straight face and she's going to tell you about redistributing resources and then call rape a hypothetical. Hey, dumbass, rape isn't a hypothetical. It's not a thought experiment. It happens every single day. But she's going to dodge it because it's inconvenient for her little utopia, and she's going to push mental health resources and meeting public safety needs. Yeah, well, without police, good luck with that. What happens when a violent criminal commits a crime? Because that's what they do. It's like these leftists are allergic to reality. They don't want to get into these hypotheticals. It's not a hypothetical. And when it does happen, the only thing standing between the victim and the guy who just destroyed the victim's life is the very thing that these people want to abolish. You claim to be the party for women, the party for the working class, and then push a system where working class women don't have anyone to call when they're attacked. Socialists always do this too. They sell you this little fantasy of community and care and justice until you start asking questions, until you start thinking through policy. If your big idea collapses the second someone asks, well, what about the rapists? Then maybe, just maybe, your idea's trash. Take the money from the police and the prisons and reinvest it into mental health, housing, community programs, social workers, soft stuff. Redistribute the resources so we don't need armed enforcement anymore. Cute story. When you redistribute those resources and some guy still rapes someone's daughter, what exactly is that social worker going to do? What's the policy? Is that mental health counselor going to track him down, cuff him, hold him accountable? Is the housing program going to stop him from doing it again tomorrow? Is community care going to lock him up so he can't prey on the next woman? No. You just defunded the only people with the power and the duty to remove a violent predator from the street. You abolished the only place that actually makes our streets safer. The root cause, irrelevant to the victims. The victims deserve justice because they're dealing with the fact of after the crime is committed. Redistributing resources, it doesn't magically make dangerous people less dangerous. It leaves the victims with fewer options when the fantasy collapses. And women and children are always the ones who pay for this little experiment. It's these ideas that get people killed and violated. Well, people like this get to claim moral superiority. There's nothing morally superior about defunding the police and abolishing prisons. This is the dumbest idea ever. And we don't want to be like the UK, where their prison system, their justice system is about to collapse because they're at 98% capacity. They don't have the resources to lock people up and keep them locked up. So they're just releasing them on the streets while also importing people that statistically commit more crime at a higher rate. We need to look at what's happening and learn from it, instead of accepting this DSA bullshit messaging that they're pushing and widely accepting throughout the party. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time.